Will you pray with me? May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Today we kick off stewardship season. That time of year when we take a good spiritual look at our money and resources. Session sets a goal budget for the church for the coming year, and then we all look at our own personal budgets and make our pledges to financially support God's work in this church, in this community, in this little corner of God's good world. And this stewardship season, as you've likely heard, in conjunction with our 150th birthday, we are also launching a capital campaign. Our goal is, over the next 2 years, to raise $150,000 for our 150th anniversary. Get it? So that we can take care of some much-needed building improvements and leave things better for the next generation. You'll hear more about that in the Minute for Stewardship, but this morning, I regret to inform you that the disciples in this morning's gospel reading are apparently not ready to launch stewardship season or a capital campaign because they are stuck in a scarcity mentality. Now, to be fair, I feel for these disciples. They have just returned in this text from being sent out on a mission, and when they come back, they are tired. In fact, Mark tells us that so many people were coming and going, they did not even have time to eat. Jesus sees his disciples' exhaustion, and he takes them away to the wilderness to rest and recuperate. But the crowds follow, and they find them. And Jesus has compassion for the crowd. He begins to teach them. So much for the poor disciples' spiritual retreat. When it gets late, the disciples have had enough. They go to Jesus and they say, "Listen, send these people away so that they can go into the village and get dinner. And by the way, we haven't eaten yet either. Remember?" Jesus' response is, quite frankly, infuriating. You give them something to eat. Us, Jesus. We are running on empty. Where on God's good earth are we going to find that much food or that much money? The disciples don't believe that they can feed the crowd because they're stuck in a scarcity mindset. We know that scarcity mindset, don't we? It cries, "There's not enough. There's not enough." Food, time, money, energy, love. And like the disciples, we usually run to this scarcity mindset when we feel empty, tired, depleted. In her book, The Soul of Money, Lynn Twist identifies 3 toxic myths that feed this scarcity mentality. Myth number 1, there is not enough. Myth number 2, more is better. And myth number 3, there is nothing we can do about it. These myths take hold in our subconscious, and without even realizing it, we begin to live like we're in a vicious game of musical chairs. There's only so much, and it's not enough, so I better run and get it before my neighbor does. Stuck in scarcity, the disciples believe that what Jesus is asking of them is impossible. There is simply not enough food to go around. Often, we are told that the antidote to a scarcity mentality is a mentality of abundance. Abundance says God gives us everything we could ask for. There is enough and more and more and more. And that's a lovely sentiment, I guess, but I'm just not sure it resonates with us. I don't know about y'all's budgets, but that's definitely not what mine is looking like these days. And I'm also not sure it's the most faithful answer. In fact, I wonder sometimes if the task of our 21st century church is to replace our theology of abundance with a theology of sufficiency. To trust in God, not to give us all that we want and more, but to give us exactly enough. Jesus teaches us to pray, after all, give us this day our daily bread. Not all the bread we could ever want, but enough bread to get through today. No more, no less. Tomorrow's bread will take care of itself tomorrow. Jesus does not send the disciples into town to buy food. He says, go and see what you already have. And what do they have? 5 loaves, 2 fish. A meager amount. And not an extravagant meal or banquet. Notice, a dinner of bread and fish is peasant's fare. But in the hands of Jesus, it's enough. Not abundance, but sufficient unto the day. There's something else that happens when we shift from a scarcity mentality to a sufficiency mentality. We go from being consumers to contributors. When we live in scarcity, when we really believe that there's not enough, our only job is to get it before it's gone. And on the other hand, if we live in abundance, well, God's provided it all. Our job is in both places to receive, to consume. But when we trust in a theology of sufficiency, when we really believe that Jesus will provide just enough to meet our needs, then we are freed from the struggle to get what's ours. And we are freed, even called, to pitch in. And I wonder if this might not be exactly what happened with those loaves and those fish. Maybe it wasn't just the disciples, but the whole crowd who moved from a scarcity mentality to a mentality of sufficiency. I wonder if when they saw Jesus bless and break the bread, saw the baskets being passed around, if they started to believe, there really might be enough. And I wonder then, if people in the crowd started to reach into their own bags and pockets, because it turns out they had brought a little food, too. I wonder if they put that food in the baskets, if they got to pitch in as well. No longer just consuming, but now contributing to Jesus' ministry. Because they realized that in the hands of Jesus, what little bit they had would be sufficient. It's not hard to see how it all applies to stewardship season, is it? We are a small church, tasked each year with raising a significant amount of money. We do a lot. And then this season, on top of our regular budget, we're seeking to raise an additional $150,000 the task is daunting. We feel like the disciples, Jesus, we don't have enough money to buy all that bread. But friends, let not the voice of scarcity lead us astray. Because here is what's actually happening. Members of the Budget and Stewardship Committee and I have visited with many of you over the last month. And if we haven't yet, don't worry, you're on the list. And as we've sat with you, you have written a different story, a story about sufficiency. We've asked you, First Presbyterian Church of Taos, for your wisdom, your prayers, your feedback, and your intended contributions. And you've told us what you love about this church, what you've treasured over the last 150 years, and your hopes for how we might serve the community in the years to come. And as we've talked, you all have broken down that big $150,000 goal into bite-sized pieces, into smaller amounts that people like us could actually envision giving. We are responding to that call to move from being consumers of God's ministry to contributors. And bit by bit, we are approaching our goal. We found ourselves saying, well, if the disciples are putting in 5 loaves and 2 fish, well, I could probably toss in a granola bar. In fact, hey, wait, I think there are some fruit snacks in the bottom of my purse. Could you do anything with those? Or maybe I didn't bring any food at all into the wilderness, but I could help pass the baskets and distribute the food that we have. We are breaking loaves. We are passing baskets. We are looking at what part might be ours to do. And y'all, based on just 14 conversations that we've had so far, if folks are giving as they say they intend to, we already have $88,000. That means we're launching the campaign today, already nearly 60% of the way to that goal. $150,000 in a small congregation. Can you believe what God can do with a few loaves and fish? God provides just enough for the day. May it be so in our church as well.